Hi, Sandy.
Hi, it's Dave, and with us today we have Al from Before the Sirens taking place for Kirk.
I almost said, hi, it's Kirk, just to be funny, but it's not Kirk.
I had to cut you off before you did.
Yeah. It's all right.
Thank you for joining us and helping us out covering in for Kirk. Hopefully you have the encyclopedia knowledge of Kirk.
No, but I'll try.
Just say my sugar and faith no more every couple of sentences.
To be fair, does anybody have the encyclopedic knowledge of rock and metal that boy has? It's mental.
It is mental. Whether he'd heard of the band that we're going to check out next is another question. I don't know, but we are going to be checking out a band called the Wagakki Band. And your face is saying all there. So it's about, I'm taking it that there is a big no from either of you that you've never heard of this band called the Wagakki Band. Okay, Japanese band. The song we're checking out is Homura. This came out of their first tour of Japan from 2015. Live performance. Really just interested to get your guys' thoughts on this. It is something we haven't really covered stylization wise, very different for us. So yeah, we are going to go into it. Now, as always, or not as always, actually, as we have been doing more recently, this is a breakdown and review. So we are going to be stopping, pausing, chopping it up. So if you are just wanting to watch the song from start to finish, then please go and watch the video on its own and don't watch a review and reaction channel. Just a bit of a silly way to do it. But yeah, let's go do it. Just a quick one. I don't think these get classed as a visual K or visual kei band, which is one of the Japanese styles. But there is a lot of traditional Japanese looks. I don't know. I think they might be classed as like a traditional Japanese power folk band. Might be kind of the way to look at it.
Your man there that just flashed up looked a little bit geisha-y, but that might be the low lighting level.
That's
so we'll see
part of the traditional lore type elements, because they also use a lot of traditional instrumentation.
Okay.
So, yeah. Do you know what? There's almost like a prog metal vibe to this, but also reminds me of like 80s cartoons, like Transformer cartoons and stuff like that.
This could easily be the theme tune to Thundercats. Easily. Yeah. Like on a track somewhere, like on an episode where they're like flying across space. This could easily be the backing track for that.
That's that era of like those cartoons from the 80s, that sort of style of music is what I'm getting from it. It's cool.
I like the lead guitar tone. If you bear with me on this one, if you sped up a Gary Moore track by about 200%, it's not far off that kind of the way that Gary Moore delivers solos. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah,
it's the way that he's sitting in that box, that pentatonic scale. I quite like it. Anyway, I'll shut up. Carry on.
That's a Kirk phrase.
What is it? A Gary Moore track?
No, pentatonic scale.
Ah, right.
He's here in spirit.
Music theory. Yeah, but I've run out now. That's all the music theory I've got.
Okay. I can hear the Gary Moore reference. Yeah, good one. Out.
Yeah.
I didn't hear. I mean, I noticed that they've got this percussionist doing something, but I can't really hear that in the mix at this point in time. I could hear the main drums, but couldn't really hear much in the way of the percussion parts. But I believe this is pretty much all an instrumental.
Okay.
I don't know if there's vocals. I'm fairly certain this is purely an instrumental one, but we'll wait and see if I'm wrong on that one. But I'm about 90% of the time I'm wrong on things. So
yeah, I was going to say about the percussionists. You know, there's two of them there, drummers, percussionists, however you want to term them, but they're not really coming through on what we're hearing now, they're obviously a key element of this band's sound.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they're not. It's not more in the forefront.
Mm.
Let's see.
See. Oh, I was always trying to find the right point to stop because always you're about to stop it and something else starts, and you're like, you're always gonna cut someone off. But I thought a great time to stop there is because I love that instrumentation that the new lady that's just come in is starting to play. I love that.
Japanese instrument.
Yeah, it's the traditional one, but I love the fact that the thing that she's playing, not like we'd use like a guitar pick, it looks like a wallpaper scraper.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing what these guys
massive guitar pick, isn't it? It's huge.
It's just like bam, bam, bam. It's just like it's almost like she's slap bassing it in a way, the way she plays it.
Do you know, it's funny, just as well, I suppose the bassist started and I was like, all right, at least it's a bit different. And then that was really different. I was just thinking the guitarist has stayed in that sort of 5 or 6 fret box for the entire track. I was like, if he stays here for this long, it's going to get a bit one-dimensional for me. There's only so long I can listen to that same guitar tone doing pretty much the same thing for however many minutes it's been in. But yeah, I was interested to see that they went Japanese traditional, like properly Japanese traditional.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that the drummer's giving everybody shout outs as they come into their individual bits, mind you. And kudos to the bassist, by the way, for light up fret dots. Everybody loves light up fret dots.
True. I do know that this band also did a cover of Evanescence Bring Me to Life, and they had Amy Lee came out and sang it.
Oh, wow.
So I do know that they did that as well. I have seen that historically a few years back. So yeah, interesting. Let's keep going. Okay, good time to stop this. So it's 3 minutes and 44 seconds of a 7-minute 15-second song. Now this feels like it's naturally the end of the track.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we reckon it's going to go from there?
I've got no idea. Right. I will say, you know what I was saying about the way that it was structured, it being quite sort of one-dimensional. I disagree now with, particularly with the lady playing that traditional Japanese sort of, well, string instrument, guitar. It's not a guitar. I don't know the actual name of it. But just at the end of that, when they revisited a sort of more, I would call it a chorus, but it was sort of revisiting a previous phrase of that song. I was thinking this is almost like Japanese polyphia, particularly off around that when they used to use distortion. They've gone a bit sort of more hip-hoppy and a bit odd and fabulous these days. But in Polyphia had an album in 2014 called Renaissance that was a bit more sort of rock-led, still catchy as hell. And that when he revisited that particular guitar lick, I was humming along to it just before they did this. Now I'm interested because Polyphia do a similar thing where they'll stop and then the song changes completely. But I mean, you and I would say, well, it's a different song, but it's not, obviously.
No.
I'm very interested to know what they're going to do here, frankly.
What do
I'd
you
be
reckon,
interested to
Andy?
see a massive breakdown with that Japanese thing as like the lead instrument. But anyway,
Yeah.
go on.
Well, at this stage, it's almost like they're using this performance to sort of showcase each musician's skills, aren't they? You've got the two percussionists, which, of course, when you started the second section, you know they're there. You could hear them. So I don't quite know what was going on there, but you know we can hear the drums, the percussionists, the bass as well coming through. Like you, Alan, I thought we've got 7.5 minutes of this guy doing an up-tempo Gary Moore impression, but it sort of broke down to the bass solo. Then the lady with the traditional Japanese instrument came in, and I get a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I don't think she's playing it in the style that's traditionally played in. I think she's obviously bringing a rock element to it, playing it a lot faster, and it does look like a wallpaper scraper she's got in her hand. She's sort of holding it like a pick, but it's got a handle and it's got a massive sort of metal edge to it, isn't it? So that's interesting. I love the look of her. I love the sound. Even coming through when the guitarist is going back to, as you said, Alan, the lick he had before. You know, you can hear all the instrumentation, even though there's lots of layers of it. But where they're going to go in this second section, I've no idea, to be honest.
So I'm getting this vibe. It's either going to go in. I have a feeling it's almost going to go down to letting them kind of ring it out a bit, and then the drums are going to do something. There's going to be some sort of build up on drums, and then probably drums with a bit of bass, a little bit of accenting from some of the other instruments. And we know that last minute and a half, they're going to go back to that first riff again.
I agree.
I think they're going to tie it all back in again.
Because what you said, Andy, is right. That traditional instrument she's playing is usually plays with a lot more sustain. The notes usually ring out a lot more. It's played in a lot more of a sort of deliberate fashion in terms of it's quite usually when you hear it, it's quite slow in tempo. And I could see that actually if they went like almost like a traditional Japanese melody with some lead guitar parts and some slow drums and bits and pieces like that. I could see that too. Be interesting though.
Let's find out where it goes. But it went to a place that we didn't expect it to. There we go.
Yeah, that's the Tiger Hidden Dragon soundtrack.
Yeah, see, there you go. Traditional music. I'm just waiting for a guitar solo over this, and I got it right.
There you go. Maybe. Let's see.
Maybe.
Okay, we're getting a flute solo in a metal track.
Man, I tell you, sonically, I am struggling with this. I'm really struggling with this. The sort of that singing was almost of sort of like Southern Asian descendancy, you know, like sort of the typical like sort of Bhangra singing you get.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, there is a sort of almost sort of fast breakdown underneath that from like the main instrumentation with it. And what is that? It's like a nose flute. That's mental. I've never seen anything like this.
There's a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
There was almost like a harp piano thing going on, and I don't. Yeah.
I buy that. That's like traditional Japanese, and it kind of all slowed down, and I expected it all to take a bit more of a sort of chilled turn, and then they've gone mad again.
They've gone mental.
Mad.
Let's go see how it finishes then. So the Wagakki band and Homura. Homura even. Okay, we're going to go alphabetically around the room, which means it's Al to kick off first. Overall impressions, thoughts on this track?
I liked, as I said, there was a few bits that I was picking up on in the first, if we call it phase, right?
Yeah.
If you imagine that song had 3 phases, the first phase where it was kind of lead guitar led, was kind of vaguely familiar. There was a sort of a sort of tone to it that I understood as kind of being from that, particularly from the video, being from that sort of traditional Japanese sort of area. Like there was some instrumentation knocking around in there, like the second percussionist, that made sense to me. And as I say, there was some sort of licks in there that were really kind of catchy. I was starting to kind of like recognize and get into. The second phase, I was expecting that to be a bit longer. I was expecting it to go way more sort of traditional, with the sort of more, if you will, westernized kind of instruments taking a back seat. Didn't last very long. And then you had that kind of breakdown bit. Singer starts, Mr. Nose Flute starts, and then they all get into it at the end. I was, as I said, I was kind of getting into the first bit. The second bit didn't last very long enough. I thought there was an awful lot going on at that point. I couldn't quite work out where I was. And then by the end of it, unfortunately for me, I couldn't hear past anything else other than what I thought was Mr. Nose Flute making it up, because it didn't sound like he was following the vocal line. It didn't sound like he was following the guitarist. But every now and then I just caught him kind of deviating from key, and I found it really jarring. So the vocal melody, I will say the vocal melody, obviously I didn't understand the lyrics, but the vocal melody was quite catchy. But I just kept getting bursts of Matey and his flute, like going like kind of off-piste every now and then, and I found that quite clashing. But yeah, I mean, I suppose somewhat typically that I kind of swayed more towards the familiar. That first phase of the song, I was into, but the last bit was a bit kind of chaotic for me, I suppose.
Andy?
I agree with Al. There are obviously the phases or sections of the song. What was sort of stand out for me is there was a structure, particularly at the beginning. As you said, it sounded sort of, familiar, almost like traditional Western rock or metal, but with a sort of traditional Japanese influence. But there was a section in the middle just before the sort of dual vocal part where, to me, it just sounded very freeform. Just like a jazz jam. Everybody doing their own thing. You thought that carried through towards the end, Alan, with the guy on the flute. But there was a section there where it seemed like everybody was just playing their own thing and it all coming together. But the sound from that live performance, I thought was excellent, in as much as all those different instruments, all half a dozen, 8 or however many there were, you could hear every single one of them when they're all playing on top of each other as well. They all had their own individual sort of sections, as I said, showcasing their talents at various points in the song. I liked the female vocalist who came in sort of halfway through. I thought the look was very traditional and a very traditional way of delivering the song. It's a very strange amalgam of all sorts of things. There's traditional instruments being played in the way they would traditionally be played in sort of Japanese music, and there's some that are being played in a style which is like they're sort of trying to replicate modern rock and metal. So it's a strange sort of mix of instruments and playing styles. Whether it works for me, I'd have to give it more time and more of a listen. But look at the crowd, look at the reaction. How many people are there? It's obviously a very popular style or very popular band. But it's something that you need to go back to, I think, and listen to it as a whole piece, because there's lots to take in, so much going on.
Okay. So I remember we talked about it last week on a video. We did 2 weeks ago on a video. We talked about Japanese bands, and the question we put out there is Japanese bands or Japanese music very much like Marmite? You either love them or hate them because of the challenges or the differentiation of the stylizations of the band. And we kind of came to this thing about where if you were to ask about a what a metalcore band from England sounds like, or a metalcore band from Germany sounds like, you before they even start playing, you pretty much know what you're going to get. If you heard a deathcore band, a death metal band, and you went pretty much like from America, Europe, Indonesia, all of the main countries of even Russia, all of the sort of mainland countries before Asia, you pretty much know what you get. And even in Bangladesh, those in that sort of area, we've heard the metalcore bands and stuff from that, and they sound like Western metalcore bands. As soon as you get into Japan, all the rule books go out the window with them. And this is one of the funniest things I find, or the most interesting thing about Japanese bands, is you really literally have no idea what you're going to get when you press play. You could get some of the most extreme stuff, some weird crossovers. There is almost literally no barriers to what they're prepared to do with their music and what they're prepared to. It's like the rule book's just been thrown out the window with them. Whereas within every other country, you kind of hear there's almost like rules that you need to abide by to for your music to be acceptable or successful. You need to follow this, because if you go off and start putting pop drum beats, although it didn't help, it didn't do bad for Enter Shikari or someone like that, but if you did it in Japan, that's a very common practice to just kind of do the craziest stuff and do the weirdest crossovers. And that's why I think when I listen to bands from Japan, standard judging in the head, you have to almost throw that out the window and look at it in a completely different light. To me, this was great. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I had that saying of there's a good 3-minute song in there. For me, there's a good 12-minute song in here. It was 7 minutes long and it needed to be 12 minutes because the passages weren't given enough time to actually fill out and make the song. There were certain passages, you said there wasn't enough time for them to bed in, and I felt like that midsection could have been several minutes longer. That last section, which was almost 3 minutes, is a song on its own right. And I actually felt there needed to be an outro to that and something else to bed it on, because it went on for too long for that one piece on its own.
Yeah.
After all the craziness before it and all the so many different changes all the way up there for 4 minutes, and then for 3 minutes you get the same thing in rotation, felt a little odd. It felt like that needed to be broken up a bit more as well to make it flow the rest of the way. But I love the differences of the instrumentation. Her vocals were good at points. Sometimes she sounded like when she was really pushing, like someone was strangling a cat. Like someone was like literally trying to grab her at some point, but then it sort of settled. So it's just some rough notes, and that is a live performance, so I expect that. Didn't mind the nose flute guy. I didn't actually mind him going off on his own. I could kind of see where he was going off on his own little solo bit. I just love the point that when you're watching it on the video and he's almost headbanging with the guitarist, like the guitarist is like rocking out the heavy distortion thing. He's like, yeah, I've got my flute as well. Yeah, check it out. I liked that as well. And the thing I've always said, my last point, I'm going to say that. And this is my last point, I'm going to say it, because someone's got to do that for Kirk's absence. With Japanese shows, every time I've seen a live performance, I've always said, I really want to go and watch it live. Their shows look so amazing. You watch some of the like European shows of bands playing, you're like, nah, yeah, that's all right. But you see the Japanese bands playing in shows, the audience engagement and participation looks amazing. And I'd love to go and see it. I'd love to see a live show from some of these bands.
In danger of not of comparing them as the same thing, even though they're not. Obviously, like this is Japanese music, but I saw a video a little while ago of Psy, as in Gangnam Style Psy.
Oh yeah,
he's still massive in Korea, right? I saw a gig, his entrance and first couple of minutes of his show. Like a month or so ago, it just popped up in my feed on social media, and it looked mental, like way more crazy than any metal show I've ever seen in my life. They were moshing, I swear, like the whole stadium was up like this. And I must admit, there's a certain intensity and a sort of togetherness between them and the crowd that, I mean, we've all been there. I'm sure you've been to, popular Western bands, metal bands, rock bands, pop bands, doesn't matter. And they're on stage, and after a while you kind of look around and everybody's kind of just stood like in a bit of a daze. You don't get that with the sort of Japanese and sort of Korean bands, that it's like we're all together and we're all moving as one, and there's a real kind of energy around it. And I agree with you, but I would I would say that they should. We said halfway through that I was expecting them to go back to that first phase, and I'm almost disappointed they didn't. So I might go and listen to that again just for that first phase
Just
bit.
for that.
Dave, you said about the rule book goes out the window with sort of Japanese music. Don't you think that applies to everything in Japan? Food, films,
Yeah, do you know what?
cartoons,
In
TV
their
programs,
head,
fashion.
I guess if in the way that they would look at it is that their rule book is their rule book, and it's weird that we're way too more conservative, and that so them they're just like, well, why wouldn't you do if that works musically? Why wouldn't you cross over Japanese pulp culture with heavy guitar riffs? And we're like, but they're separate. Metal and rock does not go with pop. You don't. We categorize things and we put them in boxes, and they're like, no, we just blur the lines between all of it. And you're like, sorry, that's just a mental way of looking at it, but maybe we're the ones in fault here, and they've actually got it all right, but who knows. Anyway, on that bombshell, if you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care.